Suki Kim in the School of Social Work at Northern Kentucky University. I just wanted to begin with my sincere thank you for the opportunity to having those great talk and discussion with our teen, adolescents, high school students in our community. So I cannot say thank you enough for this time. And I have a number of activities that I try to prepare and hope that I can deliver those during this session. So I am able to see your names on screen, but also I would love to having some very brief intro so that we know each other a little bit and then we can move forward. So I wanted to put some agenda first and see what our session expectations are. So we will have a brief intro first time, and then getting to know each other a little bit by introducing your name and why you are here in the middle of such a busy schedule you have. June 2nd, 2 o'clock. I would love to know why you are in this session. And also we will learn a little bit about the human brain and the development and addictions and teen brain functions. And I have a couple of activities throughout this session, and we will have some nice brainstorming about the health and the mental health career choices that our adolescents can make. And the Q&A, please remind me, I would love to highlight Q&A session during this session so that we will have an opportunity to talk and discuss before we end this session. And then overall discussion and contact information will be coming on your way. So let's go ahead to introduce yourself first, and then I will go with my intro a little bit further. So how about go with Rachel? Okay. Finally, good to see you.
I'm not invisible anymore. My name is Rachel Zlatkin, and I'm a professor at NKU. I teach in the Honors College, and also I teach in integrative studies. In the past, I've also been an advisor in the Honors program when it was still just a program. So my own research deals with the history of medicine, basically pre-body-mind split. And so I've become very interested in how the language around trauma, and especially with regards to research that they're doing now on the frontal lobe and how this split is finally being recognized as increasingly problematic. My PhD is in literature, and I teach research writing, and so my own research is more pedagogical and deals with the importance of, if you're going to be teaching writing and critical thinking, then you need to have some skills in also teaching emotional processing along with thought processing. Like, you can't really split those two. And so just one of my personal frustrations is when I see that happening in the writing classroom, and a lot of my work is trying to counter that narrative and bring emotions back into that conversation. You know, a lot of professors are really uncomfortable with that, so.
What is such an honor to have you here. We have to have a long conversation.
I know, I would love
this session.
Yeah, we've sat with each other on groups before and that kind of thing, but I've never had it going on with each other. Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's such an honor to have you. Thank you.
I'm really excited to be here and to meet everybody.
Okay, we will leave with this. Okay. Susan, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name's Susan Ryman. I work in Norse advising, and I'm taking this because I think it's important just working with people of this age to understand as much as we all can that are working directly with them about their brain and their functioning. And I also have 2 teenagers, so.
That makes it real.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Okay. Diane, would you like to introduce yourself for us, please?
Sure. I have a broad background. So I've been a longstanding adjunct for over 20 years in the biological sciences department at NKU.
Wow.
And then I left the college teaching full-time a few years ago, and I work at a local cancer lab. So that's typically where my research is. I'm doing a summer internship program helping with the educational aspects of STEM, though, at the cancer lab. And my full-time regular job is teaching K through 12 now, which has been an eye-opening experience. So even though I've outreach for more than 20 years, it's not the same as being in the classroom with those individuals for a 7-hour period. So I thought it would be great to look at this aspect, and it really spoke to me when I saw the title. A lot of the things that I saw going on, not only in the college classroom, but seeing it manifest early in high school.
Oh, wow.
So I thought it would be informative.
Wonderful. Good to have you. Appreciate you being here. Okay. How about Kate? Kate is on board right now. You just arrived. Do you need a moment to breathe and ready to go for the session? Otherwise, please go ahead to introduce yourself to us. Now connecting to audio. Meanwhile, how about Caroline and then Amanda? Would you?
Hi, I'm Carolyn No. I am the program director for the Institute for Health Innovation. We started the Teen Health Science Cafe program in 2018. It's part of a national network of teen cafes throughout the country. Our focus is clearly on health, and we have currently 4 teen cafe sites in person when we are live and able to interact with other human beings. One in Gallatin, Newport, Pendleton, and Owen counties. And we're going to be expanding into Carroll and then also into Avondale in Cincinnati. Programs are primarily intended for teens. It's really kind of interesting to see so many adults today. And we are really passionate about exposing students to the opportunities that are in health careers, helping them to better understand the science and become informed citizens. And this particular series is supported by the Northern Kentucky ASAP. And so it is focused on addiction.
Wonderful. Thank you, Caroline. We cannot do anything without you. Amanda.
Hi, I work with Carolyn. So my role in this was trying to get presenters like Suki, so kind of get them to come and talk to teens. I was also trying to get teens to show up, and I had a few signed up, but I guess either they haven't rolled out of bed yet or who knows. But it's wonderful to see all of your all's faces, because that means that you guys are interested in helping future teens know how to handle these scenarios and kind of give them this information and to pass it along. So that's obviously a really good thing that you guys showed up.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate you make this work. Kate, we'd love to hear your voice, please. Maybe you could unmute your microphone, then you may able to speak.
If you can't get to your mic or you have to be quiet right now, you can also use the chat.
That's a good option too. So how about as we are inviting people, and I will just move forward to the next slide for getting to know about me a little bit, so that you know why I am having those opportunities and excited about this topic. That I have a very hard research subject, which is frontal lobe, which is the brain studies, my core research area, that looking at frontal lobe functions, organizational planning, abstract thinking, and as well as correcting mistakes and problem solving skills that actually generate in frontal lobe, which you all understand and know about that. So that's the frontal lobe functions in the brain is my key research area. And after that, I was expanding an area with the brain study with all the adults. And now we are conducting for the music non-pharmacological intervention, how the music learning, how to play a piano as an example, how that impact the brain functions, especially between the not impaired or the other population groups who have some dementia. So that's a very up-to-date research activities that I am conducting now to looking at the brain function. Is there any way that we can do without the medication? And it is a very current trend to implement non-medication oriented intervention for human brain function. And I think that music, nothing to lose. You learn how to play your instrument and stimulating your brain's cell and brain muscles. So we have those studies. But on top of that, I do have an interest in addictions and the brain function, how that really works. We have not been unpacked much thus far, but I believe that so many people like you are interested in brain functions and how our human behavior with addiction habit, how they're really relevant to your brain function that looks like. So the more interesting area is like a teenager age group, how much they know about the brain function. Basically, that was my main talk today. But how our, as an adult, we needed to understand how the brain developed, and so that we can approach a little more impactful and effective ways for our high school students for that. So that is my key area of the research also. And the next slide that show you some of the study that I just briefly mentioning about. So I'm very much enjoying to connecting with the community. So that's my joy to know people who are serving our community members and healthcare agencies and nonprofit organizations, all of them. So that really tied to very good in teaching, research, and community engagement. So that's what I have been doing at NKU, and I'm incredibly blessed to having all of these people on campus and off campus. So here are some objectives, and then I was expecting to have our high school students maybe like to see, okay, what should I get from this session? So I just prepare for some objectives that I would love to let them and let us to describe about the human brain and the brain development, what is that throughout this session, and identifying addiction and teen brain function, how they really impact, vice versa. Explaining addiction as a disease, and so many people think that addiction is just addiction, nothing to do with the human body, nothing to do with the daily living, all of those. And it is illness, it is a disease that I wanted to promote throughout this session. And also demonstrating what we are learning through some of the activities that I prepared, and explore so many different career choices for our adolescents to get some glimpse of it, and expecting to some eye-opening, oh, I didn't think that this health or mental health field is available for me and for our teenagers as well. Here is the group chat that I prepared, and maybe we can exercise some group chat activities that just to type in some of the your means to yourself. What is the healthy brain means to you? So let's go ahead to chat about healthy brain means to you.
Now is a great time to unmute yourself and join the conversation.
That's great. either you can type in or we can talk. I mean, that's readily available. We can talk. It's your session. Please don't make myself like this is my own session. No, not at all. It's your session.
I mean, all of my background is in a study of the mind. So there's an overlap, but I am not, they didn't, I mean, like history of medicine, so their concept of the brain was somewhat flawed. You know, they were, so it's more of an abstraction that in my background.
In my background, it would actually have to be the physiology because that's my background. So I think of increasing neural connections like wires and roots sprouting. So as they're learning and doing different types of STEM learning, we've seen it more so that it increases long-term memory. We found the more hands-on, more reading, more watching, the more types of learning that they do, which is really a preferred learning style, preference rather than what they're best at, because most of us have preferences, but we can do all of them.
Definitely.
So STEM research that education-wise and science-wise, the more they apply themselves in those learning tools, the more neural sprouts occur, making connections between the brain cell neurons. So I think of healthy brains as doing that. The more sprouting of neurons, the better. The more
great.
connection, the more connections. So
Kate says, oh, sorry, go ahead, Diane.
I just said I love to see that in my students.
Kate, who is a student, she's a junior, she said, healthy brain to me means happiness, active learning, and making good choices.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like the good
Kate.
choices. That's a great point.
Among all of those answers, Kate, I just plot, and absolutely you are right. That's what we wanted to maintain, make sure that the brain function is good and keep them and expanding. And so thank you for your input here. Here are some questions that I prepared for all of us here. That what does it mean to have a healthy brain, by the way? Another question might be, how do you know if your brain is healthy? And how can we improve our brain health? And the last question is, why is it important to have a healthy brain? So I thought this is a so relevant question for our adolescents and chat and discuss and having some ongoing conversation after this session. So those some questions that we want to keep that in our mind during this session and think about it after this session as well. Here is the polling activities that I prepare that you can participate. I'm going to activate that I prepare for 4 different addiction is a disease question that see how that works. And I'm going to launch the polling right now. You are welcome to participate. Total 4 questions. Everybody had a chance? Wow, you are so fast. So I'm going to hit the ending poll. Do you see the result on screen or not yet? Let me share result right here. You see that? Okay. I am not surprised that you say true and no one challenged those questions. And I thought this is a basic addictions, how they really connect to the brain health and this kind of a conversation we are having right now. So I thought this is a great preview exercise for understanding about the addiction and also connecting with the addiction, absolutely connect with our brain health. So I'm going to minimize that. Can you see the screen after that?
Yeah.
The next screen is about the true and false, that what you just participated. And the next screen is talking about addiction is a long-term chronic disease. Not just the addiction is a disease, but it is a long-term chronic disease. If it involves seeking out drug and using them, even when the results are harmful, addiction may also be called substance abuse disorder, which is a DSM-4. Now we are using DSM-5 that we give a diagnosis for patient. In my field, we call patient as a client, that we diagnose the addiction as a chronic long-term disease. And I thought, including Katie, I thought this is important aspect to understand about the addiction and how they really impact our brain health. And also it can be caused by using too much of a drug or alcohol. And I believe the high school students may wonder about how the alcohol and substance abuse will impact their own brain functions. Later on, I have a couple of slides that I wanted to highlight throughout this session about understanding about the brain and how they're really relevant to our daily living. And then also over time, addiction changes the structure and function of the brain. That is really concerns many people that, oh, it changes the structure of our brain functions. So I just want to make sure that we understand the key concept of addiction connecting to our brain function as a long-term disease. There are several activities that I prepare, but if you can see, and I will not do the specific activity on this, but it is like a yes and no type of a questionnaire that I prepared. It gives addiction can begin when a person uses a drug, but addiction is more than just using just a lot of a drug. So with that, we want to make sure some differences in between. And also the addiction most often gets worse over time. So it is very, very critical to get some pre-screening or pre-intervention or prevention before it gets worse. It's a lot easier and better if we find some indication about addiction and also the indication about impairment of our brain. So I would like you to, if you would like me to send this PowerPoint, I will send it and you can disseminate that. So we don't have to read it through each slide for now, but it gives you some understanding about the addictions as well. Neurocognition concerns the cognitive functions in the brain, which I will mainly talking about frontal lobe brain. And actually I put some video clip here that I might save this video clip for later and see how we are doing in terms of the time we got. So I'm going to save this, and then just for now, I'm going to skip that one for now. Here is the brain activities that we have a lot of part of a brain here, but mainly when you see this frontal lobe brain, it is so relevant to our adolescents mainly, that one of the research area is my frontal lobe brain functions. This brain function is the engine of our brain. If we drive our car, the engine broke down, the car is not going anywhere, stuck, just there, dysfunctional. You just cannot drive that car. The same idea, the frontal lobe function is our engine of our brain function. It's so critical to maintain and develop properly. So our teenagers having development, and you will and welcome to argue this statement that if I say, well, our human brain development will stop after 18 years old. There are many scholars argue on that. Some scholars argue that human brain develop even after the 18 years old. But I certainly value of the scholar findings of the study saying that our teenagers' brain is not fully formed yet. However, if we do not have a fully formed brain functions for that frontal lobe area, we expect them to be fully perfect human being. So at the same time, when we're learning about frontal lobe development time frame, and we like to judge them. Why didn't do your homework on time? Why did you tell me at the last minute? Why didn't you prepare yesterday that you're just about to go to school? Why are you telling me now? Why are you not waking up on time? You are being late. Or why didn't you submit your assignment on time? We blame them. But I want to challenge in this session, maybe we want to hold that blame. Because if we understand the brain development process, they are not there yet. So kind of make us guilty to say that. And I used to say that, and we may want to revisit when we say it. Knowing about this adolescent's brain is still forming and still developing. So we have a great room for being patient until formed this frontal lobe part, the brain is anchored in the brain cell. So when we see the high school students in the school, guess what? It's so natural. They are not doing well. That's very natural if we're looking at that perspective. They should be not perfect human being because they are still, processing those that. So this frontal lobe is so critical. It creates the abstract thinking, and also it creates your problem solving skills. And also it gives you an opportunity to correct your own mistake, so you don't make another mistake. And also you can have a planning skills. Like let's say today you are on this Zoom session, you plan probably maybe even this morning, oh yeah, 2 o'clock, I have to get on the Zoom. So you show up on time. By any means, if somebody being late, probably have their meaning and reason to be late. But we all plan, and it is not by accident you show up on time. It actually generated from your frontal lobe. And guess what? Congratulations. Your brain really works today. I don't know, I cannot guarantee for tomorrow, but these are planning skills and correcting skills, and as well as abstract thinking, and also organizing skills, things that you are multitasking. Some people are by nature, but sometimes we train to be able to collaborating with those multitasking skill. There are so many people discuss about this frontal lobe is really trainable after 18 years old. That's a big question now that, for me, I think we can train the brain. So, and I will give you some justification why I say the way that I said a little later. But this frontal lobe gives us a lot of required life skill to be successful. Academic success, life success, and whatever that you name as a successful life, that requires this frontal lobe function needed to be there and developed properly and not impaired, so that we can live quality of life also. The next slide will give you the list of the decision-making, correction skills, management skills. Usually I used to have a client in a clinical settings that they having a medication that they're prescribing them, and there are a lot of patients or clients not taking a medication the way that we physicians, providers give it to them to take on time, delaying. Once they get the medication in the bottle, it's almost gone. Normally, when your frontal lobe function is working, maybe tomorrow, or maybe next week, my medication will run out. So I might need to give them a call. Can I get the prescription again so that I can fill the medication before it ran out? That's the normal process to have. And that's very critical for the clinical settings, patients who are taking medication. But frontal lobe function, if someone is impaired, they cannot plan ahead of time. They just say, oh, it's gone. And then they cannot plan for the next step. I don't know what to do. If it's not there, medication is not there, then, oh, I don't know what to do. We like them to say, why didn't you call before the medication ran out? That's a planning skills that healthcare providers wanting to see. The classroom teacher in a high school classroom, oh, why didn't you tell me if you are going to submit this assignment a little later? Because of your life event occur before the due date. Why didn't you tell me before? Why are you telling now at the last minute? Why did you wait until the end of the semester? I have no way to help you out. Why did you wait until the end of the session? All of this is not just a behavioral issue, it is a brain function issue. So I have a great question to give to the session that my background is in social work. People argue that brain function is actually the DNA and gene, all of those things are involved with. I am not arguing that is not involved, but I also wanted to open a discussion that if we're living in very poor conditions, we're living in a lot of high stressful environment, especially adolescent students who are living in very abusive and domestic violence environment, who are living in constantly moving one place to next place. I have no idea where I'm at today. I have no idea where I will be tomorrow. Those kind of life will create impairment and giving a negative impact to the brain function, especially frontal lobe. So those kind of a social environment aspect is not able to separate from the brain functions. So we must promote more and better. And also we have our own justification why we should promote to break the poverty, poor cycle of our lives. Especially adolescents in the midst of the developing their brain, they must live in very healthy, loving, nurtured environment to be able to develop the function well. And that saves for the rest of their lives. So that we always promote, we wanted to live in a rich, I want to have a lot of money so that I can do anything what I want to do. That can be a one way to say that, but we wanted to looking at why we should break this cycle, poverty cycle, because of that impact our brain functions. That impact the quality of life for the individuals, and also like these addictions, all of this impact our brain function, and we needed to look at more closely how they really impact to our brain. Again, I will let you watch this video clip that will be useful for the addiction as a disease and how that impact the brain. I will save this part for now. Yeah, so I was able to find something that career in health and mental health. There are so many professional settings that we can see in our community. There are so many dozens and thousands different career choices out there, but I want to include social work professions that as a generalist social workers in the healthcare settings who are dealing with the health overall or the mental health to serve clients in our community, but also mental health, including addictions, trauma, all of those areas that we can expose a little bit more. But if we like to serve helping profession, including social work field, who are dealing with health and mental health patients and clients, we needed to know whether we like to be around with people. It's surprised that so many students that I have, sometimes I ask, do you love people? Some students say, no, I hate people around me, but I love a computer. Though if someone really loves to work with a computer, still it opens to the health in social work, mental health in social work, health in nursing field and in every other field that welcoming you. So mostly, actually, we ultimately want to help people's lives. So those kind of social work field is one of the options that our high school student may want to take a look at. There are different link that I put to the next slide that a little more detail about the career choice they can make, and also know before they make the decision will be so critical. So and there are so many healthcare providers that bring their own expertise, counseling, and also the so many people are working in our nonprofit and profit agencies. They're working with multidisciplinary team at the hospital settings. So there are social work in medical social workers position in many other places, including hospital settings. Those kind of options that I believe that when I see the freshmen at the college level, they have no clue what the social work. They only know someone having a problem with the children and they take away children out of their home. So that is not the full picture of the social work field in the healthcare system, that we wanted to let our adolescents know about the healthcare choices that they can make, and also bring some opportunity to understand mental health field, what is localized. I would love to bring them to the nonprofit organization who are delivering those healthcare mental health services, kind of a follow through one day and feel about it. That's what we are doing at NKU, to bring them to the lab, that they see some healthcare field, what is localized, and experiencing to see the some blood sample. They change the idea that, oh, I thought I liked being a nurse. I didn't know the nurse give a shot and see the blood sample. And I don't think I will live with seeing this blood every single day. They change their mind after they get some training and tutorial session. So those kind of things that many people are kind of giving some another look for the field in health and mental health overall. So I would love to introduce this field in social work. Absolutely, we are the one of the team with a multi and diverse field that we see in our community. We can explore some of the medical or community social work options for our high school students that I would love to expand a little bit more of that. So here is the some time that we can kind of expand some of the question and an answer that you can jump in, and we can kind of brainstorm some of the things that we wanted to see more in our community. So it is your time for jumping in, and Susan and Kate, Rachel, and then Diane, Amanda, and Caroline.
And Kate, if you still can't work your microphone, feel free to throw anything in the chat, and I'll pose it out to the group.
I really am glad that you addressed the idea of blame. Yeah, I mean, and I'm curious what your thoughts are between, you know, because in my research, I've read, you know, 18 years old, brain check, and also 25 years old, brain check. And I'm like, well, goodness, if it's 25, then it's their entire college career. It's not just high school, where this research is really important. And so just the pedagogical, what that would mean pedagogically if professors really took that research more seriously than I think we do, because traditionally we're trained to think 18 years is the cutoff point really for brain development. So I'm just interested in your thoughts about that, Suki, as far as like conversations perhaps you've had with colleagues from different departments who are less,
yeah, that's a,
you know, yeah.
Absolutely, that's a really important question, and probably I do not have a clear answer to that, but I do have that conversation with colleagues and people who are working on those kind of a field and area of the brain functions. I'm pro to advocate for prevention. Intervention and treatment, that stage, I believe, in my perspective, in my opinion, is too late game. Prevention, prevention, and prevention, and find some indication every day. So let's put that in perspective in my classroom. And when I'm looking at my students, I hope and I expect their brain is working properly, working well. Sometimes some students are struggling with, and I ought to think, oh, what's wrong with you? But before we think that way, we may want to wonder. That's why people's life history is so critical. How they grew up, what was local like their childhood, what kind of condition they are in, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So all these things are coming in place in a classroom. And when I'm looking at that aspect, if some students are struggling in a classroom, maybe that is the indication there will be a brain opening a door for some conversation. We will never say what is wrong with you. We will never say that. But that's why intentionally I create a one-on-one session in my class, because I like to know them so that I can deliver lecture or meet their learning style, actually. That's what we academicians like to say, that meet their learning style. But that's not enough. We needed to know and understand the students, where they are, where they were. And we want to know what their needs are. So oftentimes they don't submit their assignment on time, never ever.
Right, it's labeled irresponsibility, and when really it's not a character flaw. Yeah. Right, but it gets labeled a lot of times as a character flaw.
So I'm glad that Susan in our advising field, so great opportunity. They will let me know if we kind of being intentional in a very nurturing and caring manner, they open up their self. And sometimes we don't know what to do with that information. There will be another conversation. But once we know their situation, how they grew up and where they are, a lot of stress. Oftentimes I have my students as their graduate program, a lot of demanding, a lot of tasks, a lot of expectation on them, a lot of stress. Until they finish their work and program. So already stress is high and very nervous and fearful and anxious for everything. So it's so vulnerable. Already the environment, like academic setting, you want to get an A. As an example, if you are a high achiever, you want to get an A. No matter what it takes, I want to get an A. So that a lot of stress, a lot of demanding situation in that. And we are adding on top of that, you have to do this A, B, C, D, E, and everything lay up. And then we expect them to follow through. It's like we treat them like a machine, like we push the bonding machine and we want to expect to have a Coca-Cola or Fanta, whatever. As an instructor, include myself. I want to be
last year, for the first time, I tried ungrading. And that just really sent the anxiety even further. Like I thought it would create like no, like made everything more dangerous. But I don't want to co-opt the conversation. I'd love to hear what other people have to say as well, especially advisors, because I know advisors have a really different perspective a lot of times than professors as well. You get to see another side of the student.
Yeah, I know in our department, it's the students will open up a lot to their advisors about non-academic things. That's really what we advise in our department, but we obviously have the resources to, if they need to go to counseling or whatever, if it's a more situation, they need to talk to their professor. But yeah, I think most advisors would say that every year the kids seem to be like coming in with higher anxiety levels than the year before. And it's, you know, it's just frustrating.
And remember, when we get a high stress and anxiety, people cannot, including myself, cannot make a healthy decision. And
Yeah.
we want them and expect me to make the decision now, here, today.
Yeah.
And we may want to think differently about, because actually, if we reduce the stress and anxiety, we can do a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And then we shaped our conversation with a certain word differently, it actually reduced the anxiety and the stress.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I say, I'm not here to fail you.
Yeah.
I want you to be successful in my class. Everybody loves to hear that. That's all they want to hear. I'm not here to fail you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one example. Of course, we want to be very tough and, you know, train them. And it's a training process so that they can act and behave well professionally in our community. Ultimately, we have that duty and the responsibility. But sometimes maybe I'm just examining myself. Maybe the way that I say to my student maybe increase the stress or decrease the stress. So I just kind of constantly examining the way that I say, same message. I want to be successful in my class, but I just give us some flavor into it. I'm not here to fail you. That's not my job. I don't think NK will pay me as much as I can fail many students. That's a good job on my profile. I don't think so. So I just wanted to let them know a different way to approach and actually reduce some anxiety and the fear. And a lot of them, if I have a 12 student in my class, everybody have a fearful thought and negative thoughts about, oh, I'm not going to be able to make this class. So so that's one way. And as soon as they get the syllabus, one of my students conduct a study with the syllabus anxiety. When they get the syllabus, page 1 through 25 page of syllabus, a lot of anxiety displayed. Oh, I don't think I can make this class. When I look at do that, and do that. Imagine some people, the brain function is not properly developed and formed. They have no idea what to do. Easy to give up. It's just so hopeless. But we are here to increase some hope and increase some training, and also somebody listen. And that's always very beneficial. So I really give you just respect to the Susan and the Rachel when you share those kind of experience and the thoughts about it. So let's hear other people too about their question. It's so important.
I will share my background since it's quite diverse. I was in the community college for 10 years as a professor, and then I was also an advisor.
Mm-hmm.
So I advised not my students, but students in other areas. And then having taught K through 12, and then teaching at the university, what Dr. Kim said made me think of how I approached my students. I learned over the last 20 years was so very important, whether they were high school, whether they were university, or they were community college. Very different backgrounds for each of the students. Specifically, the community college came from very, very, I want to say, strenuous backgrounds. Most of them had stories to share, and when I was their professor, they would typically open up to me and let me know their background. Mm-hmm. I found that whether it was community college, university, or high school within the past 2 years, and I taught at Owen County briefly, if I met the students where they were, one-on-one or in small groups, they were much more likely to open up to me, and I could just see their stress level in their body be released as I treated them not as an equal, but as a human being, rather than speaking down to them from the professor-student aspect. And so getting to know each one of them, even my students I have at the high school level now, you would think would be AP biology, but they're not. I actually have the middle students, and what I found is what we call our middle students are quite intelligent, but their intelligences don't show, and much of it is because of what you mentioned. It's their situations, whether it be the social aspects of high school or their home life or something else, many stresses upon them. Getting them to work through that just so they can get through the high school academia and even college is astronomical, but so much of it is emotionally related. But meeting them where they are, it took me not weeks, not days, but months to get them to trust me based on how I came across that first few days, whether I was intimidating or not. And I typically, I guess, come across as intimidating because that's what science teachers are like, right?
That's right.
Because it's such a challenging area. But them thinking they have to have that expectation of getting an A, to get across to them that that's not necessarily your expectation. And it doesn't have to be. But that was a dilemma I often faced with each student was, what was their expectation? And what is it okay to be accepting as getting a C is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What's your long-term goal?
So we probably have time for one more question or comment, hoping our teen will jump in.
Yeah.
There.
Thank you, Caroline. As we say, it should be the ongoing conversation. It's a 1 hour session, never be satisfied for all of us here, but it's a beginning conversation to see the way that what we do, and maybe we can do it differently. And then again, well, my thoughts about this brain function approach and the addiction, how that impact our brain functions, is actually if we are willing to change our social environment, actually that influence impact your brain functions. So many neurologists used to fix the brain cell, but now medical model adapt the social environment aspect. If we change the way we live, and people we got a lot of support from other people, nurturing people around them, and somebody listen you no matter what, and supporting you, that actually gives a lot of a brain function, little more healthier ways. So it will be a great chance, like including Kate, adolescent age is a great time to develop. So those adolescent population need a lot of support. A lot of adults that listened, a lot of adults are willing to help them out and be able to give them an opportunity to open up themselves, and in providing some safe place to talk, safe place to listen for them. And actually they will give a lot of influence to their development stages. If someone is 50 years old, 70 years, this is my hypothesis, although I believe that brain can be trained with these social environment changes, but great opportunity for the adolescent brains till they are developing, so that we can increase some the functional level for their brain. And to do that, we need to bring people who are willing to work with these teenagers. And they are seeking for some support and help. Somebody listen what they are going through. Then I think a lot of our society in many different aspects will be healthier, and also to increase their life well-being and the quality of life, later life, and in a long term. So that's kind of what I wanted to send some message out to our adolescent group. And I want them to, and we want them to know that there are people wanting to listen, wanting to help them out, and they are never be alone. We needed to work together, and we wanted to bring some great avenue to having this kind of a dialogue with them. So I really appreciate this opportunity. And also I wanna thank you, Kate, being with us today, and also just professionals in this our session. And really thank you for being here. And we wanna, and I wanted to learn from you more. and want to have those ongoing conversation with everyone, including high school classroom teachers. I honor them. I went to the Gallatin High School in March, right before COVID-19 happened. I went there. After my session ended, I give all the honor for all the adolescent classrooms who are teaching them. And so I just wanted to give that feedback back to our group here. So I will just pause here, and then just Caroline and Amanda, you may want to jump in to.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kate actually, she said she wasn't really sure what to ask, but she said, what is the best age to start trying things on your own with only yourself to keep honesty and responsibility in the environment? So we can just address that, and then we'll probably have to start wrapping up.
Hello, Beverly too. How are you? Good to see you. So please jump in. Kate's question is great and brilliant. What do you think that the appropriate age to be responsible for? Do you have that clear answer in this panel here? With this mind of a brain, frontal lobe, brain development will end by 18 years old. If that is the where we wanted to stay, the answer to that, you are able to and responsible for your own life after 18 years old. That probably the scientists, maybe some people may say that to that question, but I believe it's case by case. It depends on, because some people are little more mature. If you're looking at the age group, if you see like a 50th grader in a classroom, some people are very mature. Some kids are not really mature. The same age group. Why is that? Probably their life story will give you that answer. Why this person is a little more mature. Think well. But the other one, students, not really. It's not, we try not to blame them, but we are looking at what's happening around their person's life. And then sometimes some life gives you some maturity early, some people having a maturity later. So in terms of the brain-wise function in this real neurologist, like 40 years ago, developed a neurologist screening tool to measure your brain functions by pencil and the paper. You don't have to go to taking an x-ray to get your frontal lobe impairment. You can actually screen and find where you are. You can screen when you are high stress, when you screen when you have a low stress, and see the pattern over time. You will find where you are. If you have like in the middle of the moving situation to the other places and locations, you may not want to do that because probably your decision-making skill is not going to be good. Also, you don't want to drive. You will get a policeman ticket sometimes. So when you measure your brain function work well or not by counting how many tickets you got a year. That's kind of an extreme example, but sometimes we measure by that. So going back to the Kate question, that will be the one answer to that great question, Kate. I don't know if that might help you or not, but there are many literatures out there talking about frontal lobe brain functions and impairment. And we do not want to see many people are impaired, but we can prevent to change by changing the social environment and having a peer, somebody really listen as a friend, having a good peer and positively influencing peer for your life that will help your thinking and your brain functions also. That's as a one option for that as well. And I'm sure Rachel and Beverly might have a good answer to that good question.
I mean, one of the things I always think about with age is I try not to think of it as a number, honestly. And I think sometimes I've had students who come across as incredibly responsible, incredibly mature. They're making all the right decisions.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're like the oldest kid in the family,
Yes.
right? Like they're, but it's not always the oldest, but there's sort of this level of they feel responsible for so much that sometimes the wrong decisions that they're making or the unhealthy decisions they're making because they're so high performing are invisible to you as a professor or somebody who's a figure of authority. And so one of the things that I've tried to do, I don't know if this helps you think about this, Kate, or not, but is just that what we mean by age and what we mean by maturity and what we mean by bad decisions can look different just depending even on where the person is in birth order, not just in their socioeconomic kind of context or issues they may have dealt with at home. Because sometimes how old you are when something happens at home matters to brain development. And so there will be different kinds of responses to it based on that and what role the child or the student had in that moment kind of gets imprinted in a way. That's how it has seemed to me in the past. So when I have like these super achieving students, I keep a close eye on them, you know, for when they may need help, but don't even know to ask for it. Like they don't know they need help.
That's right.
And how to be present to that student in a way where you're not labeling them or making them feel bad or self-conscious or anything like that, but just to be supportive as they process that. That's kind of, yeah. In addition to everything you already said, which I totally agree with. But like, that's kind of the other side of it, I thought, for me. Yeah.
Just, yeah, that's a great insight to that question. Just briefly too, that recently I was able to see the kids, their mother left home. So this 8 years old and 5 years old, they left with the daddy at home and having no mother at home. So this sister, 8 years old sister, was responsible for little boy, little brother. So she began to know how to take care of a brother with that early age and so mature. And because of the life circumstances, create those coping skills and responsible for pretty much everything, more than what the age should do. So that's one analogy that, yeah, she is responsible for, develop their skills over the time in life. The second analogy will be, the other day I went to my children's regular eye checkup. And then usually I ask what age is appropriate to having a contact lenses. It will be a good analogy to you. The person at the place saying when the child is responsible for cleaning their own contact lenses. Cannot define what age, but if you as a parent know that your child is responsible for their own contact lenses to clean up and put on and then take out before they go to bed. So that's a kind of another analogy. I know this is not clear answer to Kate's question. There are some answer is very fuzzy. It depends on the people, depends on the where you are, because that makes it unique who you are and how we grew up, how we live in this kind of a behavioral kind of environment that we are in there. So I really appreciate Kate's question. That really makes me think more.
All right. Well, thank everybody for jumping in and taking part in the Q&A and taking part in this presentation. I want to thank Suki Kim for putting together this presentation. It was pretty great. And be on the lookout for our next Teen Cafe. It will be happening June 16th at 2 p.m. With Alicia West, who works in our respiratory care. She's one of our respiratory care faculty. And she'll be talking about addiction and vaping. So be on the lookout for that. And we hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much, everyone.